Welcome. This special bonus episode includes a conversation with Mary Taylor, who accomplished the impressive goal of reading 1,000 books in retirement. We hope you enjoy her reflection on this amazing journey and the powerful lessons she learned along the way. Enjoy!
Well, Mary, I'm so excited to speak with you today. Thank you for agreeing to come and talk with me a little bit.
My pleasure.
So I'm excited to hear a little bit more about this goal that you set for yourself that I have heard you've just recently accomplished. Tell me a little bit about the goal and what gave you the idea of setting this goal.
I had taught school for almost 40 years and retired in June of 2004.
Mm-hmm.
And people would say, are you going to travel? And I said, do I have to go someplace? And it was like, what do I want to do in my, and what I had in mind was a calm, peaceful existence. When I thought about what would be really calm, and I don't live a real exciting life, my house is pretty calm already, but I was working and I have a lot of different interests, so I was going and doing things. So I said, just being home with a good book. That's what I wanted to do. But I made a couple of goals that were more formal. I said, I live just 3 or 4 miles from the beach. I'm going to go every week down the beach, maybe take my horse and go to the beach every week. And I think I'll go out to lunch once a week. I rarely do that. Those things I thought, it sounds like what other people would do, I guess. But then I don't even know if I was talking to anybody or just myself, but without any discussion, I said, I want to read 1,000 books in my retirement. Just like that. And it wasn't like, oh no, that's crazy. No, I had read, but I have never had the time to read long periods. And to me, the thought of just being in my home, my feet up, and a good book, I just thought it sounded wonderful. And so that's what I started doing, is reading. I didn't read nonstop, but I did read more than I'd ever read before. And time, it just kept adding up. Now, what I did, because I was talking to a friend the other day, and he said, I bet I've read over 1,000 books. I said, I'm sure you had. Did you ever keep track of?
Right.
Never thought to do that. Well, I did.
Right.
So I had this little book, and so every book from the Sweet Thursday by John Steinbeck was the first. Every one of them had the author of the book and the date.
Wow.
One reason is I was probably forget if I'd read them or not. And it just started adding up. Now, if I had known it was really going to be so serious thing for me, I would have given myself a little bit more room for more detail, like a plus or minus, or even a synopsis. That would have been nice. But I kept track, and it ended up being 40 pages of 25 books a page. And I can... what I've been thinking, okay, what have I read? What is contained in those 1,000 books? So I just started writing down. I started going through those lists, and I'm not finished at all, but like foreign books or humor or celebrities, tons of autobiographies and biographies, historical, pages and pages, social, like trans kids, Boy Erased, In Our Hearts We Were Giants. And then I made a list of my favorite authors, because there are about 15 out of all of those writers that I consider just near genius. Not everyone, but few of them are just so brilliant. And a couple of them, especially when I open their book, I get this, home feeling. It's just so close to me what they say, and I can truly get lost in reading these wonderful books that people can come up with. Now, let me tell you something. When I was a student teacher in the 60s, I wrote a little poem for my kids in the 3rd grade, although I always taught kids with special needs after that. But I wrote this little poem. Fly a jet, sail, you bet. Wrestle a lion if you choose. Just pick up a book and take a good look. These things can happen to you. Now, I wrote that to inspire them. But here it is, 2023. It has inspired me through the years. That little thing said, yeah, you can be all over the world without going. You can learn about different cultures. And I love to read about Asian authors, Irish authors, a lot of British writers, people who are much older than me, people who are much younger than me, all in between, people who don't believe the way I believe. And it expands my awareness of this world. And I'm 80 years old now. So I'm looking back and realizing that there's so much to learn. And now it seems so little time. But I'm really grateful to God that he put this in my heart. And I believe he did. That because I didn't go to the beach every week. I didn't go out to eat with a friend because that wasn't really what I wanted to do. What I wanted to do was explore the world. And that's what I did in my own home through written words. And because I had taught reading so long, it's real. And I say this every once in a while, I just hope the kids that I taught love to read the way I do. Because I know what it does for me. And so there's just so much to tell that I
that's so amazing, Mary. I really love that idea of reading making you feel at home, but also being the thing that helps you transcend your home to explore the world through literature. Tell me a little bit about, well, first, how long did it take you to accomplish this goal of reading 1,000 books?
Well, I started reading June of, as soon as I retired, 2003. And then I have just read through the years. And my son was figuring it out. He said, well, Mom, you read about a book a week. Wow. It ended up kind of being that way. But in truth, some weeks I might read 3. It's all according to the size and to the interest level. Now, the biggest book I read, other than the Bible, and I read the Bible through 3 times. And the Bible is a big book, 66 books, but I only counted it as one. And that was 3 times. But the biggest book and one of the most impactful books that I ever read was Andersonville. It kind of shook me to my core as a Southern woman, or was for a long time. Now I'm a Southern California woman. But during the Civil War, it just really taught me a lot I'd never been taught. And so my son had given it to me, telling me what a great book it was. And I just, it started a new interest in me, Civil War better. And also I'm very interested in World War II, because that's when I was born in 42. And so I've read a lot of books about women in the military, especially fascinated with the women pilots. They were given very little credit, but they did incredible things. There's the Air Transport Auxiliary. I'd never heard of it. Wow. Those women, and some men, but mostly women, would fly wherever they needed an airplane. If they had it there, they would fly that airplane to get it to where it was needed. Some lost their lives doing it. Wow. They sacrificed so much. I read about the nurses who were in the, working for the government. The auxiliary transport auxiliary air. I got it wrong, but anyway, they're called Atta Girls, ATT, Atta Girls, because kind of a fun thing. And then I read about the World Wars, the resistance, the people in the resistance who put their lives on the line to see what was going on, what the enemy was up to, and what they could do to change that and direct it. It just some marvelous reading.
Wow.
And so informative and educational to me, because I know that at my age, I think I've had a decent education. I have, my master's degree. I've had, I've been a student through the years, but there's a lot I didn't know about something that I feel that everyone should know.
Right.
And we just don't know these things, the history, the true history.
Sure.
And so I have just been, it's kind of like being in a room full of desserts. You just go, what am I going to enjoy today? Wow. So reading is that. It brings it to you. And you have to have, I have an 8-year-old granddaughter. And when I got toward the end of the goal, the last 10 or something, I was at their house and I was saying, give me a book, bring me a book to read. I want to read the book. And I said, I'm only like 10 away. She said, Grammy, you said you did not read for the numbers. She never forgets anything. I said, you are right. Yeah. I haven't, through the years, I haven't read so that I could put down a number. But I said, now that I'm so close, I just want to enjoy every book to the max.
Wow.
So one of the things I did when I got closer, I went back to some of my favorite books in the past, pulled them out and reread them. And they count as a book because they're still a book. I don't skip through it or scan it. I skim it through it. I read it. So some of my favorite books got reread. And I don't know, it just a great experience. And someone said to me, well, you can just now make them smaller increments, like maybe 100 at a time. I said, I don't need to set anything else. I've accomplished the goal. Now I've already read 7 more books since then. And I just put it in my book as 1,000 plus. Yeah. And I'm adding to it. But I say, no pressure, just pleasure. So that's what I'm getting out of this now. And I'm really thankful. There's so many inspirational books I've read. Some of the leaders of our belief system from way back when, and they may sound stilted and they may not sound, in the language we use today as much, but the truth of the word is in there, some great, who knows about Smith Wigglesworth? Oswald Chambers, Hudson Taylor, some of these, C.S. Lewis, of course, Miles Monroe, so many people that I have a list of all of these different ones and more to go. I just started this last night looking through this and I have all of this already. So
amazing.
I'm realizing what I have read. And I read a lot about animals, specifically dogs, because I had a couple of dogs I love very much. And and I've read, like I said, very inspirational. Read Bible 3 times. It actually should be 4 because I read the book. It's called, I think, The Book, and it's the Bible, but in like conversational. I don't know how you describe that, but it was very good too. But I don't know. I think I guess it reaffirms that I did something well in this life. Those children who had such problems learning, if I actually helped give them the gift of reading, their world would be clearer and they would have fly a jet, wrestle a lion, whatever books that, then I feel pretty good. That is the accomplishment. And this, I don't even call it an experiment, just what I did with my life. Oh, and 2, some people imagine I just read all day long. What I do is I turn the TV off at 9 o'clock in reading time. So I was getting really, 12 o'clock was not unusual, a lot of nights that I would read. And then I said, all right, you need to cut back on the time. But it just dedicated time to reading. I think that is when you set a goal, you have to have some way of accomplishing it.
Right.
It's not going to just do itself. You've got, and but I didn't sit down and go, how many books do I have to read this week to make it? It just worked out.
Right.
It'd be about 50, at a time. And then I think, oh, well, it's look at that. I'd tell my son, hey, I've read 400 books. Way to go, Mom. And then, and then I told him, my dad said, well, I know through the years I've been telling you how many books I've read. I said, that probably was boring. He said, no, I'm really proud of you.
Yeah.
Not necessarily something to be proud of. It's kind of selfish in one way. And yet, in another way, it's not, because I think it's made me a better person.
Yeah. Yeah. It's opened your mind up to the world and other people and experiences, things that you wouldn't have learned otherwise. Yeah. Yeah.
That's right. It's, I believe God works through whatever means that available to us and to him.
Right.
And so I believe, I feel good about it. I'll just say that. I feel good about it. I feel like I wasted time. I explored the world through books. Yeah. But anyway.
And I have two questions that you basically already began to answer. So I'm going to use part of your answer already to these questions. But if you want to fill in any additional information, the first question is this. What are some of the highlights of all of these books that you've read over the years? What are some of the high points of your experience with reading 1,000 books?
I don't think it was necessarily the number of books. That was not really it. It was the individual books that I cross that would speak to me and inform me, educate me, entertain me. I love humor. Some of these books, I laugh out loud, and it's good for you. It's like getting an internal massage when you anyway, love that. And I've found out through all these autobiographies and biographies that a lot of the people I thought I admired an awful lot, reading their lives from them when they talk. Of course, they're not writers, but at the same time, they kind of spilled everything. And I came away with some of them thinking, I don't believe we'd be friends. I don't admire you as much as I thought I did.
Interesting.
So people really can open up. And I think that's good, too, that we have a more real expectation or of people and not hold it to such a high standard that they're just people like us. But then again, some of them really showed interest in humanity and social works. And right now I'm reading, it's supposed to be the definitive book of Abraham Lincoln. Long, and it's taken me a while to read it, but it is so enlightening. From Lincoln. He'd been gone a long time. I thought I knew him. I didn't know him. He was a very man that I thought. And then reading the autobiography of Eleanor Roosevelt, whom I have admired through the years for her work with civil rights and women's rights, and knowing a lot of the struggles. And I've read other books by her. And one of them was called This World. And I can hear her shaking her head, This World. And she's gone a while, so she should see it now. But anyway, I think it's the individual books and like I said, discovering writers like the Irish writer Maeve Binchy. Love Maeve Binchy. She passed a few years ago, and it hurt me because I said, oh no, she has more stories to tell. And it just some of those individual people like that. And I'm sure later I'll think of things that I'm not thinking of to tell you right now. But they're
excellent. And then you also were sharing about how you would shut off the TV at 9 o'clock. That would help carve out the space and time for you to read. So based on that answer, I wonder, this is my question. What are some of the lessons that you learned throughout this journey that helped you to keep this goal that you set for yourself? What are some of the practices, some of the habits that you created that helped you to accomplish this goal?
Well, I think there were times that I didn't read as much because I got distracted, and that time that I'd set aside, I started playing backgammon on, just obsessed, loved it. And I realized it was taking, and I had to stop because I realized it was consuming my time, and I didn't feel I was getting back from it what I should. And so I had to stick with it, and mainly always remember to record the book. Oh, that kept me, and I also reviewed probably by now, probably around 400 books. So on Amazon.com. So after I would read a book, I would take time right then, most of the time, and think about, how did I like that book? What could I suggest for someone else, whether I would encourage them to read it? What were the main things? What, if I really loved it, how can I say that to other people? And about almost the same number of people have said that it helped them. So I did that. And I think that helped me too, because it was an extension of the reading. So for me, it was it was multiple. It was the taking time, letting down, saying, this is time that I'm going to read. Not like, oh no, I have to read. That was never the case. I never did that. That was not it. It was a pleasure to read. So I think keeping in mind, enjoy the journey. Enjoy the journey. When I look at these books, it amazes me, some of these books that I've read so long ago, and they're terrific. But some of them I don't really know. And if I had to tell you what it was about, I'd have to look at the book or read it. There are too many of them. But at the same time, when I read them, I go, oh yeah, I remember that. And just, so I think enjoy what you're doing. If it is a real pain, oh man, now, right now I'm trying to get back into doing some exercise more. So I have I guess these are goals now that I've always, everybody wants to lose weight, everybody wants to exercise more. And so I'm trying to get into more of a routine, and I think routine helps a lot. And that was with the 9 to 12 or 11. That was a routine I got into. And by knowing I was going to turn the TV off at 9 o'clock, I was set to VCR, so I knew that I could, I don't have to see it first time around. This is the joy of this, because when I was young and I went to a class and they said, someday you'll be able to go forward and not have to watch the commercials. And I go, oh, and all of these telling us that we would be able to do, and you'll be able to buy movies on there. I thought, what? Am I going to put money in my TV? It's just so, we have such an advantage now. And someone might wonder why I didn't go to the library more. I guess because I didn't want to have to go back and forth so much. And I just quickly here, I started buying a lot of books. A lot of the books I've read were from Goodwill. I bought hardback books, about 18. I'm putting them back there on my bookshelf. About 18 books of John Grisham, hardback books. I was trying to read every one of his, and they were so cheap, but they doubled their price. So they doubled their price. I go, well, maybe I need to look around. So I started finding different ways and to get books. Friends belonged to a book club, so she gave me the current books, which some of them I didn't care for, but a lot of them were really, really good, because my books I've read through BookBub, on a Kindle on BookBub, are years old. So they've been on the bestseller list. I know how many people have given them 5,000 stars and all that. But so it still costs. But the price is so much smaller. If sometimes I'll pay $2 for one. A lot of them are $1, and some they give you free. Or if I'm really anxious, I'll pay a little more. But when you read so many, it adds up.
Yes.
So, but there, and there are books, free books, but you have to, it's all according to what you want. And that's something too in setting a goal. What do you want to get out of it? If you're just reading to like my granddaughter said, to put down a number, don't do it. It's not worth it, because you're putting your time and your mind. Some of the books I would start and I'd go, life's too short to read this.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, were there books that you started that you decided to stop reading?
I just stopped. Now, one of them I actually reviewed and said, this, no, it's more than one, but one I read recent, I was so shocked when I opened it and saw some, I'm not comfortable with the F word flying around all over a page. I'm just not. So I was so shocked at this young woman doing this that I thought, no. And so the review I gave on Amazon.com, and I don't know if they put it on, I hadn't checked, was not for me. This may be for some people, but not for me. I can't take that kind of language. And I didn't want, but I would like to see what the author could do without that component. But again, I added, I'm not saying it verbatim, but that I know there are a lot of people that she was writing to that are perfectly fine with the language she said. That's their culture, but it's not mine. It's Christian. I don't talk like that. I don't want to read words that are going to pop up in my head. I do not want to. I figure if they pop up here, they're going to pop out here.
Sure.
Witness would be destroyed. I don't want it. So yes, and some were just boring. One was so goofy that I just go, oh, I know this is written for a teenage boy. This cannot be written for an 8-year-old woman. And
That's
so
funny.
So if it's reading books you're after, know what you like and then go for that.
Yeah.
But I guess in any, like, why didn't I go to the ocean once a week? Why didn't I go out to lunch last times? Those were things I thought I would like to do. But there were reasons, obviously, I didn't do it. I mean, I'm so close. I used to go to the ocean and draw in watercolor and everything. And I love having the ocean there. There's something about that. I don't have to see it. I know it's there. I'm pointing to the now. And I don't know. See, that's something I may consider. Why? Because I'm evaluating now. I've reached that goal. I'm still reading, but I figure there's a lot more I can learn about myself and my books, my reactions to the book. So I think if you can set a goal that's not complete in itself, but that it has branches from it that will lead you in other areas, that's a good thing.
Right.
And it can be a much greater thing than just accomplishing that single thing.
Yeah.
You know.
Amen. And so last question, you've again already sort of answered this, but I'll leave it open for you to share anything else that you're wanting to share. The topic of this next podcast is focused on this idea of setting resolutions and goals, as we have a tradition of doing every new year. What advice do you have for our listeners who may be setting goals for this next year? What advice do you have for them about setting and keeping the goals that they make?
Well, don't buy a big exercise machine. It's only going to hold your clothes. Make them realistic. Make them something that you can see that it's attainable. Don't make it so hard for yourself. Underscore it a little bit. If you really want to reach 100 or something, try 50, and then later you reach up to 60, maybe go for 70, and then try. But don't make it so hard. When you know yourself, don't pressure yourself because someone else is going to know. God's going to know, you're going to know, but just don't try to please other people through your goals.
Right.
That's a very, very personal thing. And I don't think you should write too many goals. To keep it simple, 2 or 3 probably enough, but make it meaningful, attainable, and hopefully pleasurable. That it's something you can look back on and say, yeah, you know, I used to not do that. Now I kind of like working out. I didn't
Mhm.
know I ever liked working out because I go and I walk around the block with my neighbor. I never drew that. Yeah, I've gotten to know her better than I ever have. So
Mm.
if you can get something out of it that adds to it,
Mm.
don't make it. We have enough pressure on ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, we have to give ourselves some slack.
Mhm.
You know, take
Yeah.
good care of yourself,
Mhm.
mentally, socially, emotionally. Uh, and when you go around the block, if you don't have that neighbor with you, and sometimes if you do, you can talk to God. And that is
Mhm.
a really wonderful thing to do.
Mhm.
And just real quickly, I may have told you this sometime in my life, but I was walking one day down my neighborhood and I said, I kind of talk out loud. You do that, yelled. I said, you know, you say we should have a mission field. Where's my mission field?
Mhm.
My mind or impressed on my heart was right here.
Mhm.
Where? The Lord led me into being a neighborhood watch person. I got to know all those people up and down. When my little dog came along, I got to know all the dog walkers. And suddenly I knew my mission field, and I could send out emails to everybody and encourage them and give
Mhm.
them hope and be someone they could turn to and give them
Mhm.
good solid information they could use in time of need.
Mhm.
So I really believe in prayer and asking God to lead you and just this is the most recent thing has happened to me, I guess. And I have to tell you, New Year's Eve, there were about 6 or 7 of us family members, my son's in-laws, really, and just young people, and we went around the group asking, what did we want to accomplish, you know? And they're young, and some like, I'm going to study harder, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to, you know, they all had theirs. And then, of course, they looked at me and said, Grammy, how about you? And kind of tongue in cheek, I said, I'm going to tell as many people as I can that I've read 1,000 books. Well, 3 or 4 days later, called me and asked, or Kathy, right? I mean, could you talk about your 1,000 books? And I go, Lord, you work fast.
That's right. We heard your prayer. That's right.
Yeah, that's something.
That's something. We're so proud of you, Mary, and we love you so much, and we're celebrating you and looking forward to hearing more about your reflection on this amazing accomplishment.
Thank you, Kevin. I love you all too.